As I was saying, we have a fairly understaffed IT department that requires creative solutions to most problems. And then the question that I get most often is, no, I don't get free tickets to Broadway shows. What you should walk away with today is really an understanding of good workflows. I'm going to give some specific examples that are tailored to the environment that we use with the software that we use, but know that these workflows can work with any MDM solution, any help desk ticketing solution, whatever it is you're using. A menu of options in ways to connect them. I'm going to demonstrate one way. I'll throw out a few more to you. Those are things that in a 75-minute session, now even less, it's going to be impossible to cover. And then the real goal is to keep you from getting the calls of somebody who says that they're down and they can't work. And you're going to show up at their desk before they know there's a problem. You're going to fix it, and you're not going to have to go back in time to do it. And lastly, just reducing those complaints. Get a calmer department because your people aren't getting yelled at. Your people aren't, getting pulled away from what you need them doing, or you're not getting pulled away if you're that support tech from what you're doing to go help somebody who feels like it's critical that they keep working. The services and resources that I'm going to be going over, I put a green check next to what Playbill uses, but I'm listing off other things, and there's always more on that list. I know everybody out there uses different stuff. For MDM, we're using FileWave. It was a choice we made a few years back. We've been very happy with it, and we're pushing forward with it. Jamf obviously has some of the same features, some different features, but it all still works the same way. And there's a new player here, I don't remember their name, and other MDMs out there that'll let you collect the data. For help desk, we use actually two in-house. We use Zendesk, that's mostly for outside support, but that's what I'm going to use for my demo today. And then we use Jira Service Desk on our internal, because it links into the Jira project management side, which can be very useful. There's Desk, there's so many others that I can't even list them off. They all have APIs, they all have ways to put data into them from outside systems. For notifications, it's something that a lot of departments don't think about. It's an important solution because all of our email boxes get clogged with so many emails every minute, if not every 5 or 10. We use, I've been using a software called OpsGenie. Recently, they were bought by Atlassian. They've now become part of the Jira family. There's PagerDuty, there's Xmatters, there's others out there. Really, all these are ways to organize your team and get notifications out there for an on-call schedule so that you're not getting a push message on your phone at 1 a.m. because something's down and you're not the on-call person. You're not the one that should be dealing with it. So it targets those notifications the way they should be targeted. It also takes vacations into account, which is nice. For dashboards, I'll touch on those briefly. There are so many of them out there. We use FileWave's built-in dashboard. I use Zendesk built-in dashboard. I've written many a custom HTML pull-ins. I wrote a small B2B mobile app that lets me just quickly run through a few things. I was shown one earlier today by FileWave, which is connected to Elasticsearch. There's a lot of solutions out there. A lot of them cost money, which is why I started building my own. Because things like Gecko Board and some of these others can cost a significant amount of money, even for a single dashboard. And it's not something necessarily that you can afford to invest in or want to. Lastly, something that brings them all together, the connectors. What I'm going to demo today is a combination of Zapier, which is a API connector. It just basically connects disparate APIs, and then Google Sheets, and unfortunately Google Apps scripts. That's unique to me and FileWave as it sits right now. It's not something I would choose to develop in, but it was a choice I had to make to get the data I needed. There's other things out there. There's IFTTT for basics. There's the Amazon API gateway. And then there's just running a local server that can cron scripts that you can write in Python or whatever it is you prefer scripting in. How do we make this all fit together, and how do we make it so your life is easier, which is the whole point of this when it really comes down to it. Where we start now is your users encounter an issue. The local geek can't solve it for them really quickly. So what do? They get on their computer and they file a support ticket. No. They call you up, they didn't open a ticket, they demand an instant response because what they're doing is the most important thing in the world, as it always is, or they're doing it for someone who is the most important thing in their person in their world. And they need it done now. What you have to do then, drop everything you're doing, except hopefully your coffee, go running to help them so that you don't get a complaint or your boss doesn't get a complaint from their boss that you guys aren't doing your job because you didn't let them work, for the 9 hours that they're there in the office. What should happen? Well, besides them actually filing a support ticket and getting it into your queue. Where we are is the desired solution is that we've got an automation that will pull your MDM on a schedule. Or if you're lucky enough to have an MDM that has webhooks that will process that data based on things that you know are going to happen. So you have your triggers. Your automation's gonna monitor triggers like a local hard drive is almost full, slowing a machine down to unusable. Lack of critical updates. You told everybody to update, they haven't done it because they don't have time to reboot their computer and wait 10 minutes for it to install updates, be it Windows or Mac. Something was found in the malware scans on the local machine. And yeah, you have a notification that comes out of there, but it got lost in your email. There's so many more. That's where your dashboards and your help desk software can come in handy. Talk about that a little later, where you can identify what the issues are that you can help prevent. Your connectors will create tickets, automatically assign them to support techs. They can either remote into a machine if it's available, or they can make a quick preventive visit to a user's desk, and voila, before they even have a chance to make a call, you've solved their problem and kept them from making this huge escalation that didn't need to happen. And dashboards are going to tell you how many of these proactive tickets you have open, what the status is, who's working on them, where they are. And you can use your automations to flag individual users as, this is a VIP. This is somebody that a level 2 or a senior tech needs to take care of instead of just passing it into the level 1 support queue. Because it's, for my instance in corporate, it's the CEO. No one touches his machine except for me. That's his edict. And he's my boss and he owns the company, so his edict is law. So the result is, instead of running to a desk, holding your coffee, hoping it doesn't spill, you end up reclining in a hammock. And yes, that is an actual police, water traffic, and tech support station on the Mekong River in Vietnam. My old chief digital officer gave me that picture when she was on a cruise that went up the river. They actually took that, and that actually is a guy sitting there with his shoes off, reclining in a hammock, waiting for the next thing to happen. Resources to get started. APIs. It's always important. Know the data you're pulling, know how you're sending it, know where it's going. There's an easy software called Postman getpostman.com. It's free for most basic usage. You can query APIs, you can formulate post requests, it'll help you formulate JSON, it'll parse JSON. It does a brilliant job. I'll show it to you later today. Most IDEs have this built in as well. WebStorm, Eclipse, all the IDEs that you can touch usually have some type of an API or JSON builder that will let you run a quick line of call to get data. And the Mac App Store is always a great resource to go ahead and look for other utilities and tools that come out. Make sure that you have the docs for the API, because they're gonna pull you. They're gonna say, oh, you're querying the wrong endpoint. You're not getting the data you're expecting, and you realize that you misformed your post request or something of the like. That is gonna kill you and make you wish you had died after 5 hours of troubleshooting and realizing you mistyped one character. Have the docs, copy and paste. For FileWave, I put the URL up there. I don't know how many of you are on FileWave, if any, but they have a decent documentation which tells you exactly what you get and how you get it and where you query. Confirm that you have the documentation for your help desk API, especially if you're writing your own scripts. What are you posting to, and where are you taking the data that you've just pulled out and putting it? And then API connectors, whether you use Zapier, which has free accounts, you can test, you can play with it, you can do it, and then you can write your own. You can use Google Sheets and Google Apps Scripts, which is always a good handoff. I'll explain the limits of Zapier a little bit later when I show you a demo. But as always, Google is the absolute best way to find any of these tools. You type the searches in for API connectors, and you're going to get 55 pages of the best tool that anyone's ever used. So I'm just pulling up what I've managed to find and what works for me. Identifying your triggers is your first step as you move into this. So where do we go to? We go to your help desk software and your dashboards. What issues keep coming up? Where do you see repeat tickets over and over and over again? Are they preventable? Is it something, is it not a kernel crash? Is it a software that your users love to install that you've given them permissions to, but on certain versions of the OS it goes boom? These are the things that your MDM, either natively or through a simple script, can identify and let your automations know about. Look at the various metrics available. Some of us don't even examine what we have in our MDMs. The sheer flood of data that they're providing to us, that they're giving us in not even dashboard form, but in reports. Some people don't ever drill down beyond the first simple report they've ever written, and they go, well, that gives me everything I need. And they don't realize that you can find out the version of every piece of software, the last time it checked in, the last time a package was installed, the last time a package was updated. Anything failure, all of this stuff is available within your MDM, which most of you should know if you don't already. And with that, FileWave offers it, Jamf offers it, custom fields. If they don't track it yourself. Write a Python script that you can deploy through your MDM, get it out there, get it to the client machines, and then you can update a custom field that will give you a trigger for the thing that you're trying to track that you didn't think you had data on. Not just your clients and not just your MDM. If I have time, even with the minimal interruption we had, I'll show a couple of examples of infrastructure things that I use that go into the same proactive system. But you can use that to push tickets into your queue. Even if it's not with an API, you can monitor an email box, then pull data out of that and put it into automated tickets. One of the things that shocked a couple of users at Playbill that I was able to do was our firewall, our main firewall is a WatchGuard. WatchGuard has a great little feature with their wireless gateway controller, which you check, and it says, detect rogue access points. Great little feature. It monitors the internal network, it monitors Wi-Fi signals, and it figures out if a access point has been added that is coming through the network that the WatchGuard is managing. So somebody turns on internet sharing on their laptop when they show up in the building, bingo, IT gets a ticket. And we know what the name of the access point is, we know when it came online, we know how much data it's using, and we can shut it down from the firewall, and then we can go try to find the user that's accidentally, hopefully, the one that's turned this on. Don't be afraid to write and deploy scripts. I was in a session this morning. Everybody in IT is becoming DevOps. It doesn't take that long to learn to write a simple script. If there's something that is a thorn in your side that you have to support constantly, with 30 minutes of Google and a decent IDE, you can develop a script that'll monitor that problem for you and flag it and let you take care of it before it drives you out of your mind. So, getting started, I'm about to shift into examples here, which are going to take up the majority of the time, I have a feeling. Connecting. First thing you have to do, set up your reporting or your webhooks, direct triggers, whatever you want to call them, in your MDM software and beyond. And make sure that either the report you need is responding to an API call, or there's a positive push webhook coming out of your software to trigger what you're going to need. Test your API. I'll say this over and over and over again. Test it. Figure out what the data is, because it's going to save your bacon later. And you will not spend an hour debugging something that if you just tested the API and looked at it and went, that doesn't look right, you could have solved in 5 minutes. And then start configuration. So, pulling data. I'm going to go through this. I'm going to have to switch in and out so that I can give you examples. We'll start with configuring a report in your MDM. I'm going to use, as I said, I'm going to use FileWave. And that is here. I don't know, can you guys see this? It's kind of small. That's interesting. I know, but it's not. Is that going to be too big? No, I think that's readable. Is that better readable for everybody? Okay. So here I've cleared some stuff out so that I can demo. They call them inventory queries. What I've done is created a report here that has simple criteria. Free space less than 20 gigabytes, and not contains the word iPad in the name, because the first time I ran this report, I had 18 more lines in it that were all iPads, which almost always have about less than 20 gigabytes of space remaining, especially if they're being used for signage and other various things around the organization, because they're probably 32 gigs to begin with. So this filters it down for me to a few machines. I had a machine apparently add itself today. Once I have that report, and it's really just a visual builder and FileWave, and I've got the fields I need, I save it out, Then, let me figure out where I am here. Number 2 on that slide, I'm not going to go back to it because it'd be just switching back and forth, is pull the API authentication credentials. For FileWave, it's pretty easy. You go into Manage Administrators /Users. I've created a single user, 0 permissions, doesn't need it, and then the application. For their specific API, you have to use the base 64. Always look at how the authentication works in the API you're going to be accessing. It's across the board, there's differences. Try to stay away from basic authentication if you have the option, because generally your password and your username are sent in the clear. So anybody with Wireshark is going to pick it up. I'm just going to copy that out. Don't have my, oh. So I've got that. And then they're very nice is to give you a script example. For curl, if you want to just try it at the command prompt, I could literally just paste this in. And that's every report that's ever been generated in the system that I haven't deleted. It's a mess of JSON, but it's instantly provided to me. So I take those details, move everything around. Now we're going to move on to using an API tester. That is Postman. I've put 3 queries in here because there are 3 levels within FileWave of info you might need to get. First, query all reports. That is the wrong query string. You can see for me, for FileWave's API, you authenticate in the header. It's an authorization. I've just pasted in that API key that I copied before. That's all I got to do. I click send. It comes back with a formatted JSON of the data that the API is providing. For this, I know this was the last report I created, so it's ID 43. Now, I can go and pull the info about the report, which gives me columns, headers, components, all of that various stuff. But to get the contents, again, there's a slightly separate one. All the header is the same, so I've just been duplicating it and adding stuff to the end. When I send that, you remember we saw those 3 users on the report. They're duplicated here with the exact columns that I had. There is a new expanded API in FileWave which actually delivers this in a proper JSON with a key and a value, the key being the field name, value being what you're seeing here. I have not updated my scripts and my work to take advantage of that quite yet, but it is there. I know in Jamf they offer a webhook call out where you can simply push data in any way that you need it, similar to what I'm doing. I don't know the details of it, so I can't talk authoritatively about it. Once you've got it and you know, okay, this is my get string, this is my header authentication, it all went right, this is what I needed to do. Now, for my purpose, and this is where we come into a limitation, this is where we come into a limitation of Zapier, which is one of the tools I like to use. I have to proxy my data through a Google Sheet. And the reason is because a webhook, in most instances, anywhere you're looking at it, deals with a single line of data, not an array. So most APIs, when you're looking to create a ticket, for instance, They deal with one item. And then you call it again to do the next item. Then you call it again. You iterate through any array. Unfortunately, Zapier has limited support for arrays, and they reserve that mainly for their links to like QuickBooks and other invoicing software, because that's where you need line item support. And I spent 4 to 5 hours at the beginning trying to figure out how to get Zapier to work with the direct API feed. It didn't work. So what I ended up doing is saying, okay, how can I get it single line by line? Zapier will pull new lines out of Google Sheets. I used it for other things. Okay, let's give that a shot. So onto Google I went. Create a Google Sheet. This is the thing that took me a little while to figure out, but you can script within Google, and you can set triggers within Google on scripts. They're Google App Scripts, if any of you have dealt with them. Can I see a show of hands? Anybody dealt with Google App Scripts? Yeah, the pain is real. It's a bastardization of JavaScript, a little bit of Python, a little bit of a couple of other things, and kind of JavaScript this, but also JavaScript this. Just Google what you need to do. It took me not very long to figure out how to write a simple script. What I'm doing is I'm calling that URL that we built in Postman with the authentication. I'm then dumping that into an actual JSON variable. And then I'm pulling what Postman showed us as the values array. Then, for internal purposes, I just logged it. And then it grabs what the active sheet is. It then iterates through the array. And all it does is append the rows. So when you set up your sheet, as I did last night, this one, you can see I just titled for each column. This way Zapier will have something to give you that's an actual text of what the data you're about to fill in the placeholder, rather than trying to guess what each thing is. Then I did a little bit of formatting magic in here. Just I have a conditional formatting that I've written previously that, oops, not conditional format, sorry. Maybe it is format. Sorry, lost that one. But there is a basic formatting because the number comes in as just a string of millions of bytes. So I formatted it out to break down to kilobytes, gigabytes, or terabytes based on division and all of that. If you Google it, you can find how to do it in Excel, how to do it in Google Sheets. It takes about 3 minutes to figure it out. Now I have my data in a sheet, and you can see that don't know why that's like that. If I go and I go back to my script, you can see that right now, if I look at my current project triggers, you can see there's a time-based call for my script that happens between 7 and 8 a.m. That's the best Google lets you do. It's time-driven, day timer. You can select a 1 hour range. So it runs, I do this with all of my reports. They run somewhere between 6 and 9 a.m. to make sure that we capture all the data. But you can also manually trigger it. It's running function. Boom. Now if I go back to the sheet, there are the 3 lines that we saw in the report. Now they're here. What do we do with them there? Well, now, I hate that you can't go into the next one. Ticket creation. Now you've got the data in a way that you can put it out, how do you get the tickets created? You have to make sure you configure your help desk. You want either, Zendesk calls them brands if you have that level of account. You can set up a channel. You can set up any number of things depending on what help desk solution you're using to identify these are IT tickets specifically for this purpose. Test your inbound API. Make sure that you can create a ticket. Zapier has a built-in application, so I don't have to test anything. But that'll save you a lot of time on the back end, as I said before. Tags. Tag your stuff as you put it in. It'll help you act on it within your help desk, so that when you have this automated ticket, who do I route it to? What am I doing with it? Where is it going? You can, for every integration that you put together, add tags. Tags don't cost you anything, and they'll save you on the back end when you're looking to run stuff. Lastly, create the ticket from your data. Oop, not that ticket. That ticket. So configuring a ticket creation. Confirm your help desk software. So let me get there. This is a section of our Zendesk. I actually can delete all of these lovely tickets. All I did was use an unused brand that we have and made sure that I could push tickets into it. It's that simple. You can create your automations around it later. Next, it always helps to just sketch out before you do it, what am I doing? What tags am I going to add? So I'm going to add FileWave automation. I'm going to add low disk space, and possibly I'm going to add high priority, depending on if it's tagged with the CEO's machine, for instance. You'll want to look at this point of setting up rules. How are you going to route it? Excuse me. Who are you going to route it to? What are you going to do with it once it's in your help desk? We'll come back to that because I want to make sure I have time to actually get through the rest of the demo. And then the configuring of the automation. So let me just flip over to Zapier and show you. Building an automation within here, one of the reasons I like it is because it's visual and I can explain it to anybody on my staff in about 5 or 10 minutes. I click Make a Zap. What's the trigger? Well, trigger is Google Sheets when a new spreadsheet row is created. I connect this account. It looks up my spreadsheets. Oops, sorry. FileWave link right there. Okay, great. Which worksheet do I want? Well, we didn't configure MacAdmin's demo. I'm not putting the data there, but we can. Let's do that. And let's just go, hang on real quick. And these are all coming across as strings, so it doesn't matter that if I format the data exactly as it needs to be formatted. So back here, I'm just going to refresh the fields, make sure it got them. After you link to the sheet, now it wants to pick a sample. So it wants to be able to pull data and show you what you're going to get. Spreadsheet row A, it got it just now. If you have more rows than that already existing in your spreadsheet, you can pick whatever row you want for testing. Oh, I lack an action step. It has no idea where it's going. So, what am I doing with the data I'm pulling? Again, I'm setting up an action, and, well, I don't see it at the top here, so Zendesk. What do I want to do? I want to create a ticket. That's pretty easy. Save and continue. You connect your Zendesk account. I've connected mine already. What I recommend is whatever help desk you're using, create a separate user specifically for this. Don't use your own. I'm using it for demo purposes, but always just create a new user, because there's going to be that time you change your password and then suddenly all of your integrations break because you just rotated your password. All right, now set up the Zendesk ticket. This is basically it. This is all I have to do. So a subject, file wave, automation, low disk warning on device. And then I come over here to my magic fields. I look at the new spreadsheet row, client name. Now I've got a placeholder. You can set an assignee. It goes out and pulls all the data from Zendesk. It has it all there. So I'm going to assign them to me. If there are collaborators, if there are additional people you want to put on the ticket, you can. You don't have to assign a person. I'm doing it so that I don't muck up our help desk and somebody doesn't get notifications that they're not expecting. Generally, the way it goes is you assign a group. That way, it will distribute the ticket to whoever is on call on that group, or to a group of people for whoever responds first. Best help desk practices I'm sure everyone is well aware of. In this instance, I'm not setting a requester name. I'm leaving that as the account that's linked, simply because I don't really need to know who it is. I just need to know the device. First comment. This is now what you're putting in. You can format it in HTML or plain text. I just leave it as plain text. And then I'll give it a description. Let's see. There is low disk space on device. And again, we'll go back to our magic fields. Details below. And then we have disk space remaining. Anything that you've pulled in from that last reporting step, you can now pull here. Oh, disk space remaining, 10 gigabytes. Total disk space. Sometimes those triggers aren't worth it and the ticket isn't going to be real because you've set your threshold too high and somebody has a tiny machine. And so, 20 gigabytes is more luxury than they can have free. So it always helps to let people know a percentage-wise of what you've got. The other fields, I don't really need last check-in or the client version. I don't need them for this case, so I'm just going to leave them off. First comment be public. That's particular to Zendesk. It can be an internal comment or a public comment. Tags. Now we go back to what I was setting up before. So my list. So I'm just going to go in here, and I'm just going to do these. Status, it's optional. They always come in as new anyway. We don't use type, we don't use a do at. Priorities can be helpful, again, based on a flag. All of this stuff is very particular to Zendesk. Let's see. And then these are some fields we use in other parts of our help desk ticketing. So now it's going to give you a summary of what you've just built and what it's sending. And then I can send a test. If I go over here, there's my ticket. Just pulled it in. There's the initial comment that we wrote, along with the data passing through from the placeholder. Once this is done, I can click Finish. We'll call this, I'll turn it on. And boom. Now, anytime we add anything to that Google Sheet, it will automatically generate tickets within Zendesk. I'm going to actually go back to Sheet 1 simply because I have all the formatting here and everything. And we'll run the other one that I created, which should be exactly what I saw. So I'll turn off that one. We'll turn that one on. Let's look and see if it ran something. No, looks like it ran this morning when it was automated. Okay, so what we'll do is just go into Google. I'll go to Tools, Script, and I'll just manually kick that script over. And it will add rows to the sheet again. One of the things that's particular to Zapier, and it's particular to if you write your own integrations, in order to prevent you from pulling the same line over and over and over again and getting into an infinite recursive loop of I'm creating a ticket, I'm creating a ticket, I'm creating a ticket, there has to be some type of an index number. And for Google, it's the row number. And Zapier saves that. So don't delete rows in the middle of your sheet. Don't mess with the sheet. Don't do anything with the sheet. Leave it as is. Otherwise, you'll suddenly be adding rows and you'll go, well, why isn't it creating things? I don't understand. And you'll realize that somebody put a blank row in the middle of the sheet and now the entire integration's broken. You basically have to restart it or duplicate the Zap and create a new page. By now it actually should have, let's see. Let's see if I broke it, because I probably did.
You said it's indexing rows with the same amount of rows in it, right? So it's just all...
Well, yeah, but I ran the script and it added 3 more rows. So it should have, and these are supposedly, on the account level that we're at, these are supposedly instantaneous. Certain Zapier actions are instantaneous, certain ones aren't. And you just have to look at their terms of service to figure it out. There are ways, by the way, in Google Script Editor to quickly add it as a menu item. I don't have that, so I'm just going in and manually running the script. In any case, we'll come back and take a look at that in a second. So Test it, test it, test it. Figure out the 85 million different ways that this can break, and make sure that you come up with the conditions for everything. Just like programming, make the workflow to catch every error that could possibly come through. Finishing touches, I'm not going to have enough time to actually run through a demo on it, but I talked about it before. Use custom fields in your MDM software. Use scripts on your clients. Identify high priority clients, computers, or devices. Then when you pass that information through, Zapier has, I think, 10,000 apps, but a number of them are very powerful steps within the software where you can branch. You can do if-thens based on data. So you can post different tickets based on what the contents of the data coming in is. Set rules in your help desk for automated escalation. It's something that I catch my department missing all the time. They'll create this, they'll set up the initial, send an email to the person or the group that gets the assignment, send a notification to the client who filed it, and then it's just there. And it sits there and it sits open for 2 months because somebody missed the email notification. Make sure you put in rules that say, if this goes unanswered for 24 hours, escalate it, reassign it to level 2, or send a tickle message to the person who's supposed to be working on it and isn't, and send me a notification that they're not doing it. Use your notification software. Again, we use so many different systems. Setting up the notification in every system, if I had that turned on in every system, I would get probably 100 emails an hour, and I already get 50. So I would prefer not to parse an additional 100. Use the notification softwares. They can be complicated to set up, but once you get them set up, they are brilliant, and they push the exact data that you ask them to push. Zapier has steps. It can push stuff to OpsGenie. It can push stuff to PagerDuty. In the same step that you create the ticket, you can send a message to a Slack channel. There are innumerable ways that you can have 15 actions on a single Zap as a result of that one line being added to the Google Sheet. And then last, this was one that I learned the hard way, and I'm still working on the search logic for it. Because I'm pulling a report, it's going to duplicate those tickets every single day if they're not addressed. Much better to search, see if there's an existing ticket, and update it, and just say, still an issue, 24 hours later. Otherwise, you're going to end up spending a whole bunch of time merging tickets in your help desk software, because day after day after day, you're going to keep getting the same notification, you're going to keep getting the same ticket created, and it's going to drive you out of your mind. So, at this point, you've turned this into this. And you've got tickets created, you've got your technicians being dispatched before they even hit the office. They have a good list of to-dos of things that by the afternoon would have been a major problem. And now you can get them out of the way, and they can get the rest of the work you need them to get done for the rest of the day, rather than responding to high priority calls that come right in the middle of coding a script where it's going to take you a half hour to get back to the point that you just lost. Other ideas for triggers. There's literally limitless. It all depends on your environment. For us, on clients, updates needed and aren't being run. Backups are out of date. That can be a big one. Files stored outside backup areas. This is a new one for us. I just wrote this script. I'm about to deploy it into production, where we have told the majority of the people at the company, we back up this directory, and this directory. Anything outside of that, your machine crashes, that's your fault, not ours. And we've laid it out to them, we've given them emails, we've pointed them at knowledge base. Do they still store stuff outside of it? Absolutely, because people just want to drop it on their desktop. So I wrote a quick script that just looks for newly created files that are in the usual areas that people, for some reason, want to store things on their desktop, in a photos folder instead of their document folder, or any other number of things. And now we can have a conversation with them. We can say, look, we talked about this. If you're storing stuff there, it's on your own head. We're not going to force you. We're just going to tell you we can't back it up, because we can't back up every machine in the company for the whole machine, or we'd run out of network storage. And then lastly, and some MDMs will do this automatically and notify you anyway, but failure to check in can mean that the enrollment is broken, and that can either mean a machine's lost, or it's been stripped and reinstalled, somebody forgot to re-enroll it, or it's not getting on Wi-Fi. And that can be a problem too, and somebody might not have mentioned it to you. Servers, don't forget about your servers. Even though you're responsible for them, you might have SNMP traps up the yin-yang. Pull them. Failed connectivity. You can monitor an outside computer that's monitoring and seeing, oh my God, that no longer has internet access, even though it appears to still have network access. I had that problem about a week and a half ago. Drive space, outage issues, all of that's available with your monitoring data on servers. Again, monitor your infrastructure, firewall, rogue hotspots, repeated usage of the guest network by devices that are enrolled in your MDM software. I have caught so many people doing this that it's ridiculous, and what they don't realize is that when they're on that, they don't have access to any of the internal resources. And then they don't understand, why can't I get this file off the server? And it's because they connected once to the guest network, and now it's permanently in that list of, these are networks I connect to, and somehow it got above our main internal network. And now all they're connecting to is the guest network every day. And then also flag your bandwidth. Make sure that if bandwidth's overused. We have a catch box?
Hi. So we don't have this problem. Actually, we do have this problem at our company, and a colleague of mine who has a guest network where the MDM server's not reachable from that network. So how can you report on that if that inventory data is not there yet?
We did a firewall rule, and the MDM's available from everywhere. It's one of the things, like we've created a configuration network that's Wi-Fi with no password, that the only thing you can talk to is...
Even if they haven't gone to the captive portal yet?
What? I'm sorry, wait.
On a guest network, you typically have a captive portal.
Yeah.
So if they haven't agreed to that yet and their Mac is sitting on that guest network, then it can't reach your MDM.
Well, that's right, but then they're just not on Wi-Fi, and then I'd catch them on a late check-in. I'm more concerned that people are using, if they're not on Wi-Fi, they're pretty much going to know it. If they're connecting to the guest network, some people just think, oh, well, that's what I got to check. You know, I got to check the box to agree to the terms. And they don't think about it. And then when they need a resource that's not available on it, that's when you get the call. And then lastly, actual network infrastructure, which is something I didn't think about initially, but VPNs going down. We have inter-office VPNs between our 3 sites, as I'm sure you guys have a lot of VPNs as well. And they were going down, and for some reason the firewall wasn't sending the notifications. But a simple monitor script that we've written now, just every once in a while just pings out to the other network on the internal address and double checks that it has connectivity. And UPS battery maintenance. The traps on those UPS network cards are horrible. And it's a great way to make sure that it gets into your system, because a lot of times your purchasing or purchase order systems are linked into your help desk software. So you can just cross-create a ticket to get a purchase order for the battery that you know you have to replace because the UPS just told you so. There are as I said before, limitless sections that you could go into for triggers. Beyond the scope of today, I'm just going to put this up here. Most of this is, you can export your data into a big data solution, get it into dashboards, webhook calls coming off of, specifically I know Jamf has it, I know FileWave's working toward it. Run a local scripting server. It's something I just started. I upgraded our video department to a new iMac Pro, and I inherited a 2013 Mac Pro. And first thing I did was slap VMware on it and fire up a whole bunch of VMs. And now I've got one that all it is basically a cron server that runs a bunch of scripts to pull data and transfer them into our help desk. And that way I can minimize the usage of going out to another source and possibly compromising an API key. APIs change. This is a big one that I learned the hard way. Company will publish a new update, and now you have 30 scripts that you now need to go and edit and change and figure out what the differences are. I just built libraries for those that don't provide them. So I use a combination of Swift, and I'm transferring out of Python into Swift as much as I can. And I just have a library. I just create the function once, and then I'm just importing it across all those scripts. And then when they change the API, I just go to the library. I change it. I deprecate the old function. Don't delete it. Don't update it. You'll kill yourself. and then write a new function, and then we can slowly propagate it across the scripts we're using. Document. I'm not going to go further into that other than to say, no, really, document, because you will not remember what you did 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago. I don't remember what I did 3 hours ago. Comment your scripts and your code. I can't say that enough. Title it. They don't have to be this long, but even this long tells you what you need to know when you come back to it. And then you can't control when other people update their software. The more you can pull in-house, the better off that you are. The more you can write your own connector scripts, you can control when they update. And I don't have any additional examples to give you, so that's it. Thank you. Any questions? We have about 5 minutes left. If anybody's got anything? Awesome. Thanks, everybody.